Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the profound, honestly kind of ruthless, and definitely scandalous strategies behind Robert Greene's sixth law of power. It's a concept that's built empires, created absolute legends, and completely ruined those who misunderstood it. At its core, the sixth law dictates one incredibly harsh truth: you must court attention at all cost. So let's jump right in and see exactly how historical titans turned visibility into an invincible weapon, and how you can do the exact same thing. Now, this ancient Indian fable of the wasp perfectly captures the ultimate fear of the ambitious, and that is being completely ignored by the world. In the story, there's this wasp who wants to be famous forever, right? So what does it do? It flies into a palace and stings a young prince, causing this massive chaotic uproar. The wasp actually dies in the process, but as it's expiring, it realizes that causing a total frenzy was 100% worth it just to be noticed. It sets the stage perfectly for what we're about to unpack.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start by looking at the danger of the crowd. Then, how to create an unforgettable image. After that, we'll pivot to cultivating an air of mystery and the strategic power of enigma, before wrapping up with the critical reversal, basically knowing when to pull back.
Section 1. The danger of the crowd and why you must avoid oblivion.
This is the foundational problem every ambitious person faces. The crucial point here is that if you don't stand out, if you don't make yourself a literal magnet for attention, you are effectively powerless. The source material emphasizes a really harsh truth. Everything is judged by its appearance. If you let yourself get buried in oblivion, your actual skills and your merits, they simply don't matter because no one is even looking at you. Whether you're sitting in a boardroom or trying to build a brand, you absolutely have to be conspicuous.
Moving on to Section 2, create an unforgettable image, specifically the sensational and scandalous. This story brilliantly illustrates the power of doing something just completely out of the ordinary to court attention. Back in the 1800s, America's premier showman, P.T. Barnum, pulled off this wild stunt. He hired a beggar, handed him 5 bricks, and told him to slowly walk a circuit on the street, replacing one brick on the sidewalk with another, over and over again, completely in silence. I mean, it made zero sense, but onlookers completely swarmed him, desperately trying to figure it out. And following Barnum's instructions, the man would periodically walk into Barnum's American Museum. This prompted the baffled crowd to actually buy tickets just to follow him inside and see what he was doing. Barnum literally generated a massive, paying crowd out of thin air.
What Barnum taught us is that the quality of attention is completely irrelevant, especially at the beginning of your rise. Honestly, whether the attention is positive or negative, it is the main ingredient of success. Get this, Barnum would actually write anonymous attacks on his own work just to keep his name in the papers. If a critic absolutely destroyed his show in a review, Barnum wouldn't complain. He'd invite that same critic to opening night and give him the best seat in the house. He understood that society just craves larger-than-life figures who aren't afraid of a little controversy.
Section 3, cultivate an air of mystery for enigmatic power.
But hey, what if you aren't naturally loud or scandalous? How can you still command the spotlight? Well, you don't always have to shout. While the sensational approach relies on those loud, larger-than-life actions to demand attention, the mysterious approach is entirely different. It thrives on holding back. Think about it. In a world that is increasingly banal and familiar, what seems enigmatic instantly draws attention. Instead of forcing yourself on the public, you force them to lean in and obsessively interpret your every move.
Let's look at an absolute masterclass in this technique. Margarita Zell arrived in Paris in 1904 with literally half a franc in her pocket. She wasn't an incredibly gifted dancer, nor was she unusually beautiful compared to the thousands of other girls looking for work at the time. But by constantly changing her origin story, like she'd claim she was a Javanese princess who learned sacred dances in secret Hindu temples, and completely wrapping herself in enigma, she became the ridiculously wealthy cult figure known to the world as Mata Hari.
And the best part? You don't need to be grand or famous to be mysterious. Woven into your day-to-day demeanor, mystery has incredible power. Try keeping silent when you're expected to speak. Appear deliberately inconsistent. You know, the famous con artist Count Victor Lustig used to ride around in a limo with a Japanese chauffeur, which was highly exotic for the time, and he'd just tear up fake telegrams in hotel lobbies. Why? Simply to make people desperately curious about him. When people are trying to figure you out, they are paying attention to you. It's really that simple.
Which brings us to Section 4, the strategic power of enigma and strategic confusion.
We're elevating this concept now, because an air of mystery isn't just for showmanship or clever con artists. It can actually save your life on the battlefield. This brings us to a crucial military realization. The mysterious makes your forces seem larger, your power more terrifying. When things cannot be instantly interpreted or easily consumed, they inspire absolute terror in your enemies. Let me show you exactly what I mean by that.
Let's travel back to the Second Punic War. The legendary Carthaginian general Hannibal found his troops completely trapped in a marsh by the Roman army. The Roman general Fabius had the mountain passes locked down. It was over, or so they thought. Right around midnight, Hannibal ordered bundles of twigs to be fastened to the horns of thousands of oxen, and then he just set them ablaze. The Roman sentries looked out and saw thousands of strange lights moving up the mountain and heard this bizarre, horrible noise. Genuinely thinking they were facing demons, the bravest sentries in the Roman army totally panicked and fled their posts. This allowed Hannibal to easily escape by dawn.
So the real weapon here wasn't the fire and it wasn't the noise. It was the unreadable puzzle. What you should take away from this is that if you ever find yourself trapped, cornered, or on the defensive, choose a simple action that has absolutely no obvious explanation. When your opponent can't read your intentions, they don't just get confused, they become paralyzed by fear.
But just when you think you have the ultimate formula for power, we have to look at the other side of the coin. Section 5, the reversal, and knowing when to stop.
So, let me ask you, is there ever a time when drawing all eyes to yourself is actually the absolute worst possible move you can make? Let's examine a major historical misstep to see what happens when the need for the limelight spirals completely out of control.
Picture this. It's London, 1850. Everyone who was anyone was at a theater performance of Macbeth, including Queen Victoria herself. Now, the strict convention was to be seated before the Queen arrived. But Lola Montez, a woman who had brilliantly used attention to rise up in society, arrived late on purpose. She sat in a box right opposite the Queen and dramatically dropped her cloak to reveal a striking, low-necked crimson gown, deliberately trying to steal the spotlight. Well, the Queen and Prince Albert noticed this, and they simply turned their heads away. They refused to look. And guess what? The entire audience followed the Queen's example. By trying to upstage a literal monarch, Lola Montez committed strategic suicide and was instantly, permanently exiled from fashionable society.
What this tells us is that drawing attention must be a carefully measured game. Appearing overly greedy for attention signals deep insecurity, and that actually drives power away from you. Furthermore, you must never let an air of mystery slowly transform into a reputation for deceit, which, by the way, is exactly what ultimately got Mata Hari executed as a suspected spy. You have to know when to bow and retreat to the shadows. Most importantly, never ever compete with the person who holds true power over you. As we summarize this explainer, we can clearly map out the precise mechanics of both visibility and ruin. We see P.T. Barnum using sensationalism for enduring fame. We see Mata Hari using ambiguity to achieve wealth, before taking it a bit too far. And we see Lola Montez falling victim to the reversal, proving that outshining the master leads directly to exile. The sixth law of power is an incredibly potent tool, but it requires not just the courage to act, but the wisdom to know exactly when to stop.
So, I leave you with this final, provocative thought. Will you master the spotlight to build your power, or will your sheer greed for attention be your ultimate downfall? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on the sixth law of power. If you found this breakdown valuable and want to learn even more about how to court attention at all cost, please make sure to like, subscribe, and visit our website to master even more laws of power. Catch you next time.